With only a week left until the 2023 Nigerian presidential election, tensions have started flaring up in different parts of the West African nation for a range of issues. Experts have also noted that the multi-religious society, where the struggle for resources and power exists, will very well impact the vote. Let's get you the very latest development on what is happening in Nigeria. We're joined by the University of Pretoria's politics PhD candidate, political sciences PhD candidate and researcher in electoral politics, Martin Ihembe, who is currently in Nigeria observing the election. Martin, a very good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us. Maybe let's start with the atmosphere, the mood in Nigeria. How would you capture it?
Thank you. Very good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, it's a tense situation in the country at the moment. Not too good. Protests, especially in the southern part of the country, southwestern part of the country, as a result of the naira redesign policy that the federal government implemented, with a well thought out policy which turned out to be badly implemented on the side of the CBN, which, in my opinion, didn't do its homework properly in ensuring that it has the new currency available and passed it across to the commercial banks for distribution to Nigerians. So there are actually hiccups with respect to this. Central bank pumped in the money through the commercial banks, and the commercial banks hoarded the money, sort of. But from what we can see happening at the moment, it seems that there are lapses on both ends, on the part of the CBN and on the part of the commercial bank. So this is actually what is creating tension at the moment as we head into the presidential and National Assembly elections next week.
You described that as a well-thought-out policy when it came to the naira to change the currency. But is the timing maybe not off? Yes, this was also done in the name of staving off corruption ahead of the elections. Could officials have waited until after the election? This is a mammoth task.
Yes, waiting after the election, the purpose for which the naira was redesigned would have been defeated. So according to what the president said, the president is not someone who is diplomatic when he's talking, and that is why his handlers try as much as possible to keep him away from the press, because he can goof when he talks. He was clear about it that there are those who have stashed a lot of money with the intention of using it to buy votes during election. So the policy was designed to, address money laundering, kidnapping for ransom, and then, those kind of problems that we have in the country. So the government has it close to her chest not to, make this public and then take the politicians unaware. So if they had waited after the election, the purpose for which the redesign policy was conceived would have been defeated. That is the context within which some would argue it's a well thought out policy. But then if you have that kind of policy, and you know that because most Nigerians live in the informal economy, they need cash.
Yeah.
And then we don't have technology that, permeates the rural environments where people can do transfer and all of that. And at a point when the policy was announced and the federal government gave deadline for, banking old notes and receiving the new notes, there was tension all over the country. The banks could not, absorb this. And the problem was that the banks weren't loading the ATM machines so that customers could have access to withdrawing. You could go to a bank with about 7, 8 ATM machines and one would be functional, So there were challenges. The bankers were making money out of this. It became an economy, an illicit economy within an economy, because the POS guys who do the POS business were equally reaping a lot of money from innocent Nigerians. The bankers were doing the same thing, and the CBN kept giving Nigerians hope that it will address the situation. The deadline came past, the CBN was not able to do that. They extended, and then last week there was a national broadcast from the president, indicating that the policy stands, it went up to the Supreme Court because the governors who were angry, the governors from the ruling party sued the federal government And the ruling from the Supreme Court was that the government should allow the new currency and the old currency to circulate within the economy. But on the part of the federal government, I think it feels that if it allows that, the purpose for which the policy was conceived would have been defeated. So in the President National Broadcast, he stated that the 200 naira note should be recirculated by the CBN back into the economy so that it can go side by side the new one. But then the 1,000 naira note, which is the highest denomination, and 500 naira note ceases to be legal tender in Nigeria. So that is where the problem is currently, you know. So there are lots of Nigerians with this money, but they don't know what to do with it. Sure. And the CBN cannot accommodate. For instance, if I have 10,000 naira, I can't go to the CBN to bank 10,000 naira. You know, so that's currently the challenge. And next week we'll be going into election. How will people move? And then transportation is quite difficult. Transporters are having issues on how to buy petrol because they have to pay with cash. I had to sleep on the road traveling from northern Nigeria into the southern part of the country because the driver could not afford to buy fuel because ATM wasn't working and he couldn't do transfer and all of that. So really it's hitting hard on those in the informal economy.
It sounds like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, this well-thought-out policy, because even the electoral body of Nigeria is warning about that they may have challenges, logistical challenges in the midst of this cash and fuel shortage in terms of delivering ballot boxes to various states.
Yes, you know, the comfort in the midst of all this quagmire is that the electoral management body has not made it known to Nigerians that it is not prepared for the election. In fact, the electoral management body has never been prepared for a national election like it has at the moment. Okay. So if the government, it has never been prepared as it has at the moment. It is ready. But logistical challenges, like you mentioned, like you rightly mentioned, could be a problem and could, you know, necessitate shifting the election. And, you know, from those within the president, within the ruling party, the president is having challenges because there are rumors of, you know, who in the country, which we can't ascertain whether it is true. And from the president body language, from my reading of the president body language, I don't think he would want to stay more than the constitutional provision that which allows him to stay in office. Number one, his favorability rating is very, very low in the country, and he's trying as much as possible to use this election to endear himself back to Nigerians. But the good news about the policy is that the opposition party seems to be backing the president because we know how elections are in Nigeria. When you have money, you can, buy. So the electoral management body has been able to, bring integrity in the electoral process in terms of technological innovations, which will make it very difficult for those who want to rig election to rig election. So now the ballot will really, really count. And what the politicians are doing now, given what they have done in 2 off-cycle elections that we've seen, is to buy votes. So they need that money that they've stashed to buy votes, which is what the president is counteracting them by bringing this policy. So in a way, the policy is popular among the opposition, but not popular among the ruling party, sort of. So on the part of the electoral management body, we wait to see what will happen within this week. If the challenges are definite such that they cannot handle the situation, it's likely the election might be postponed. But don't take my word, I don't think the election will be postponed.
We will not quote you on that, Martin. Maybe let's take a look at religious tensions. How is the situation where that is concerned? Or what is the situation where that is concerned?
Yes, you're right. Nigeria is a religious nation divided across the southern and northern part of the country. Dominant southern, the Christian dominant in the southern part of the country, and then the Muslim in this thing. In my opinion, religion wouldn't have been an issue if the politicians have not funded it. So it's a way of tapping into their ethnic and religious enclaves in order to secure votes. So when they do this, those Nigerians, even among the educated ones, tend to buy into this, and it becomes an issue. But as it is now, the candidates will have, it's going to be like, some would say 4-horse race, some would say 3-horse race. But in my opinion, I think it's going to be 3-horse race. And 2 of the candidates are from Muslims and one is a Christian. So in a way, there is this tendency to move around the churches to campaign for those who are Christian, and then there is this tendency for those who are Muslims to move around, the mosques to campaign and engage themselves. Then there is equally the ethno-regional dimension where you come from. The PDP candidate is from northeast Nigeria, Hausa Fulani. The APC candidate is from southwest Nigeria, a Yoruba. And then the Labour Party candidate is from southeast Nigeria, a Christian. So that is the division. So you see among people, some who are, you hardly can find those who look at the merit of their candidacy and say, I'm voting for this candidate because of A, B, Z, Y, Z. I'm not voting for this candidate because of that. There is that tendency of the Christian in the electorate coming out that we want a Christian candidate. And keep in mind also that currently we have a Muslim president. So going by the elite arrangement of zoning, sort of a Muslim has done it, a Christian should become the next president. This is a kind of arrangement which sort of like brings national peace in the country that you cannot dismiss easily in a country where ethno-religious sentiments are deafening and can trigger, violence. We've seen this happen in 2011 election when President Goodluck Jonathan won the election as against the elite arrangement of zoning and power going back to the north because he was from the southern part of the country, which is the mainstay of the economy because this region is where much of the oil is being produced. And for the first time, they had the opportunity of producing the president, and he wanted to go for a second term, and he lost in 2015. Then Buhari came in 2015 and has done 2 terms, who happens to be from the northern part of the country. So for those who are sensitive to religious divisions, they have the view that power should shift to a Christian from the southern part of the country, since power has been in the northern part of the country in the position of a Muslim. So these are tensions you cannot dismiss easily, given how divided we are as a nation.
Yeah. Martin, please help us with this, because you explained what's behind the cash shortage. How do you reconcile that an oil-rich nation like Nigeria is facing a fuel shortage?
Simple. Corruption. Corruption, simple. And keep in mind also that the government, in as much as we're in a neoliberal era where the government tends to favor free market economy policy, sort of, there is a socialist face of the government policy with respect to petrol. So there is subsidy in petrol, and it goes in trillions of naira. But Nigerians don't tend to get this petrol at the pump when they want to buy. So the subsidy regime is corruption in itself. It's an economy that benefits the elite. Nigerians don't benefit from it. And that is why if you listen to the campaign of the 3 candidates that are aspiring to govern us in 2023, they are all saying they are going to abolish the subsidy regime. Sort of. We don't have a problem if it's managed properly. And it's simple. The former CBN governor was of the view that someone is somewhere at Nimasa, which is like National Maritime, blah, blah, something, who takes the arrival of vessel with crude oil that did not bath in Nigeria. It moves to the neighboring basin. And it's on record that in the whole world, Nigeria is the country that sells pump price of petrol cheapest. We buy at the moment, the pricing regime varies depending on which part of the country you are. If you're in the southern part of the country, it's likely you will buy cheaper. If you're in the northern part of the country, you buy higher. Some are buying for 450 naira, which is the highest we've ever seen. The southern part of the country, you buy for 350 naira per liter, which is not even up to 15 rand or even 10 rand, so to speak. So the neighboring countries within Nigeria, it is more expensive. For those who are into these shady businesses, they bring it in, but then don't offload it in Nigeria. They take it to Cameroon, they take it to Chad, to Niger Republic, and they make more money. So there is a problem of corruption. If really the government can police this import and distribution properly, Nigeria will have enough. We don't even know how much we consume a day.
Sure.
The National Petroleum Corporation tells us that the country consumes almost about 70 million liters per day. And we can't really put a finger to this to say Nigerians really consume up to this. So we don't know. So the problem largely is corruption. You can imagine a nation that produces number 6 or so, produce crude oil, is suffering with scarcity. It's unthinkable, sort of. So some would say that deregulation is the answer. Allow market forces to determine the price, let them import when they want to import and whatever, that kind of thing. But when you allow that to happen, the common people in the informal economy will suffer, sort of. So there is this debate on keep subsidy, but implement it properly. Take out subsidy, put the money into developmental causes that will benefit the poor, because the subsidy regime is meant to benefit Nigerians at the bottom, not the rich. But it has turned out that it is the rich that are benefiting from it.
Africa. Martin, then what incentive do everyday Nigerians have to head to the polls? You're also experiencing a brain drain with many young people from the country scattered all over the world.
Yeah, that's an issue. We have what in local parlance they call Jagba. Most Nigerians with doctors, lawyers are moving out of the country. But it's interesting that there has never been grassroots mobilization in national election as it has been in this current election, especially with the candidacy of Peter Obi of the Labour Party. There are new registrants who want to vote in the election. The hardship is so tough on Nigerians, it's hellish. So some feel that participating in the electoral process will help in changing the narrative, voting a candidate of their choice. Nigerians have never been this committed to the electoral process as they are in this election. We have almost about 93 million voters, which is more than voters in 15 West African countries. More than voters in 15 West African countries. That tells you the level of involvement in this election. So yes, most Nigerians are moving out as a result of the economic crisis in the country, police brutality and all whatnot. There is still commitment for those who cannot move out to change the narrative by going to the polls and vote. And INEC has given them confidence that this will work by bringing about technological innovations that will make their votes count. There is the BVAS technology. Now you can't rig, accredit before you go to vote and all of that. So some sense of confidence is there from the Ihembe, and Nigerians are believing that this will work. All that needs to happen is to clear this mess so that people will be able to move freely and come and cast their ballot. Rigging is not going to be the end thing. So yes, I agree with you. Moving out of the country is a serious problem, especially with the skilled personnel. But we hope for the best come this Saturday, sorry.
Indeed, hoping for the best. Martin Ihembe is with the University of Pretoria. He's a political sciences PhD candidate and a researcher in electoral politics, joining us from Nigeria. Thank you.